Before we start our presentation, we are sorry for the unnecessary sound you may hear throughout the video, and there is no copyright intended for the music and the video that we have used. Thank you.
Module 6 Make versus Buy Decision, Lesson 3. Economic factors will be presented by Jessa Karla ALMAZAN, Lyka Louise EDEM, John Rovic GAVINO and Criselle VILLAMOR.
Good afternoon everyone, we are the Group 5. Let us now move on to Module 6 in our discussion of Make versus Buy decisions. We will also learn about the third pillar, the economic factors that impact an entrepreneur's make versus buy decisions. Economic factors is the third pillar in the make versus buy strategy. Obviously, the country must determine whether to purchase a product or manufacture it itself. Diverse investment and asset return, along with potential savings from outsourcing, creates opportunities. In economic factors include the impact of outsourcing on capital expenditures. Apart from cost savings, outsourcing provides a variety of additional solutions for businesses. Outsourcing is acknowledged as a strategic assistance for businesses seeking to enhance efficiency and save expenses. This is a music to the ears of businesses who wants to be successful. Return on invested capital. The return on invested capital, in particular, is the amount of return that a firm generates on its invested capital. The possible savings achieved through outsourcing. Firms can obtain economies of scale by expanding output while decreasing expenses. The primary goal of CPO should be to move the conversation away from the price of the final product and towards the entire cost of supplying the product or services. To do this, companies must identify supplier cost drivers and design pricing mechanisms that reflect current cost of goods and how costs may change in the future. The aim is to ensure that ongoing cost increases are covered by the contract and shared between the outsourcer and the CPO organization. Consider that most companies base their decision on whether or not to outsource solely on estimates of internal versus external costs associated with the outsourcing transaction. Example, the price of individual items manufactured or the operating costs of the outsourcing department, human resources, or IT network, rather than the price of the individual items manufactured or the operating costs of the sourcing department.
To further give you an example, customizing some software on a third-party information technology network can compute a large surcharge to the outsourcing agreement. The outsourcing agreement is a contract formed between the company and the service provider wherein the provider promises to deliver specified services. The home country needs to select the outsourcing very carefully. When the outsourcing partner are not selected cautiously, the company usually try to protect themselves from the mistake or delay by replicating in-house some of the effort that was originally farmed out. These direct to several prices for the same project and potential costs are commonly neglected at times when the outsourcing agreement is made.
The costs that are commonly neglected in outsourcing manufacturing operations are the transportation and handling charges, expanded and extended inventories, administrative bills such as the supplier management and quality control rates, casted complexity and its effect on lean flows, minimal return on invested capital, and the production dependability and quality control. First, let's define outsourcing. Outsourcing is a way of life for electronic manufacturers, and many would not survive in the marketplace without this option. But there are costs that are commonly neglected in outsourcing manufacturing operations, which are the transportation or the freight charge, also known as the freight rate, is the amount paid to a carrier company for the transportation of goods from the point of origin to an agreed location, and handling charges, which is the fee that is paid to cover the packaging, transport, and etc. of the commodity. Second one is expanded inventories. Indicates that the company has purchased more goods than it has sold. And extended inventories is the multiplication of an inventory unit quantity by its assigned cost. Next one is administrative bills such as the supplier management. It refers to the meticulous process of managing and improving interactions with third-party vendors that provide goods or services, and the quality control rates, referring to a process through which a business seeks to ensure the product quality is maintained or improved. Next one is casted complexity and its effect on lean flows. Is a way to improve their position in the market. Lean manufacturing is an effective tool for elevating the competitiveness of organizations based on the fact that each can find its own way of improvement. Next one is the minimal return on invested capital, or a return on capital. That is lower than the cost of capital. It means that there is a need of a sustainable business model. Lastly is the production dependability and quality control. In manufacturing, serve as a tool in order to achieve reliability and safety. Different sources of uncertainties and variations in design, manufacturing, and operation of products should be considered.
Good afternoon. I am John Rovic, a GAVINO. After all these costs are considered, depending on a one-time quote to measure the competitiveness of an external producer is usually not enough. But there are things enterprises can refrain from this failure. This is by factoring into the outsourcing equation the economic effects of comparative wages rates, labor productivity, tools and staff utilization, work-based bias and functional processes, innovation potential of processes and products, and the relative purchasing power. To have a successful outsourcing relationship, savings from productivity gains must be shared as a critical factor so that both parties have an incentive. After establishing a formal relationship, it is very important to find the right balance between fully transparent vendor functions and management. We can assume that to have a successful outsourcing relationship, the basic factor requires sharing the savings from the productivity progress so that both parties have an incentive to combine. After creating a formal relationship, it is very important to seek the right balance among fully transparent suppliers' functions and management. It is important to have a transparent supplier so that you can get all the information you need after every transaction. After the outsourcing decisions have been made, the suppliers have been selected, it is crucial in terms of a fair and just pricing scheme. Expectations of productivity progress and minimization cost, and the required responsiveness in terms of design, service, or to keep up the delivery changes.
Module 7 Supply Chain Networks and Inventory Management, Lesson 1. Network Design will be presented by Justine Denise URBINA, John Kerby Reyes and Jovilyn Commendador.
My name is Justine Denise URBINA and I am your lecturer for today. Let's take a look at the supply chain management, which benefits the organization more than we can imagine, from the structural layout down to the infrastructure. This network design is needed in order to gain a better understanding inside the organization. So what does network design really means? Network design helps regulate the physical arrangement, design, structure layout, and infrastructure of the whole supply chain management. And we have what we call the supply chain network design. It is a systematic approach to determining the best location and optimal size of the facilities to be included in the supply chain and to ensure the optimal flow of products using advanced modeling. The network design has its own roles in the supply chain management. First is to define the objectives of the organization. Second is to define the project scope. Third is to determine the analysis to be performed. Fourth is to determine the tools to be utilized or used in the manufacturing of the products or services. And lastly, fifth, the completion of project in accordance with the design. The supply chain network determines the path ahead for the business. If the supply chain network is completed in accordance with the design, the business can expect a gain in a substantial way. But before that, what are really the factors that influence the decision-making in the supply chain network design? First is the location and distance. The distance between the different locations of the supply chain and the locations themselves are important factors to be considered because the location of the supply chain network includes the customers, the suppliers' manufacturing abilities, airports, ports, and so on. Second is the current and future demand of the company as well. It must be taken into account and it should be grouped appropriately. Third factor is the service requirements, which means that the maximum allowable transmit time and distance are used to determine the location of the warehouses to be added in the supply chain design. Fourth is the size and frequency of the shipment, which are essential factors in determining the cost. The higher the frequency, the greater the cost. The smaller the shipment, the higher the cost. Warehousing and labor costs. Warehousing are fixed costs and are factored in the decision-making of the supply chain network design, while labor costs is not fixed costs, but they play an important role as well. Next is the tracking costs, which the cost and the type of tracking are of considerable importance too. And lastly, the mode of transportation to be used in running the supply chain matters as well.
Before I further discuss about our topic, I am John Kerby M. Reyes from BSE 3A. Many major decisions that involve long-term location, capacity, technology, and supplier selections have to be made by taking into account the probable uncertainties present in the market development. This is accompanied by changing economic and legal conditions. The network design in supply chain focuses primarily on the development of multi-stage stochastic optimization methods. When we say stochastic optimization, it refers to a collection of methods for minimizing or maximizing an objective function when randomness is present, which can appear in many ways, such as in finance, insurance, energy production and trading, logistics and transportation, and among other areas. They describe decision situations under uncertainty and with a longer planning horizons, vital for decision support under demand, freight rate, and exchange rate uncertainty. Now, let us proceed to the three different strategies to study the uncertainty and scenario modeling, such as the warehouse location, traffic network design, and reshoring. First strategy is the warehouse location. A warehouse is an integral aspect of every supply chain, no matter what the product. However, its location is extremely important too. This is because it can help to reduce time, effort, and cost, making your service streamlined and beneficial for you and your customers. When companies expand their branches into different new areas, they require new storage facilities as well. The company is confronted with the warehouse location issue. Within the set of possible options for locations, the one that presents minimal fixed and operational costs by satisfying the new requirement demand is prepared, such as the distance from your warehouse, customers, and your manufacturing facilities. This is a key issue in establishing the best location for you and your business. When considering this, take into account the carrier partners you're using and how much it will cost you and your customers. If you're manufacturing at a different location, then this distance will be a factor too. Also, as with every business, your workforce will be integral to keeping your warehouse running efficiently. So, you'll need to choose a warehouse location which has good transport links and is accessible by your employees.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jovilyn, Commendator. The traffic network design, it's on the process layout, but it doesn't seem to be completed or continued because it seems that the allocated budget is usually limited, so they need to think of other ways that can be built to improve the flow of traffic network.
Another strategy is the reshoring, which refers to the re-establishing of the manufacturing operations to the place or country where it originates. It is the practice of bringing the outsourced products and services back to the source point from which they were originally shipped. In order to find the best manufacturing location, a company has to assess the disruption, customer and supplier proximity, supply availability, technology, and other competitive factors. A company needs a supply chain solution that optimizes the flow of goods. Reshoring helps a company's supply chain remove intellectual property risks, optimize freight movement, and create flexible inventory schedule based on demands. If we think about it, reshoring is a supply chain strategy which is based on the economic forces. Just like now, in times of pandemic, I heard that many companies optimize the reshoring strategy in their own organization. It is due to the anxieties surrounding general travel, widespread of shortage in medical supplies and other assets, sudden restriction placed under the suppliers across the world. Reshoring is now the top priority of the supply chain experts and some of the largest manufacturers both in the US and other countries around the world. So, why do companies reshore? First, it is because of the supply chain management. Reshoring means that most links in the supply chain will be in the same time zone, making them easier to manage and creating leaner workflows. Second is the regulatory factors, conforming to material standards, quality control issues, and losing intellectual rights when working overseas can create problems for the organization. Reshoring means that everything comes under one set of regulations. Next is boosting the national economy. Reshoring brings jobs, assets, and resources back to its original nation. This helps to increase the GDP or the gross domestic products and bolster of the economy. And lastly, risk mitigation. Reshoring can help protect supply chains from the inevitability of highly disruptive black swan events that could result in significant production delays. All in all, the different strategy to study the uncertainty and scenario modeling are: first, warehouse location; second, traffic network design; and lastly, the reshoring.